Hello, and welcome to Andromaxe's healing guide for the Mythic Twin Ogron fight in Highmaul. I'm Andromaxe, I'm a Holy Paladin. I'm going to be mostly discussing some healing tips and tricks, but also some general strategy that my guild did for this fight. You'll notice that we started out here in the room on the kind of right side as you're facing the boss. There are 4 colored markers that we're going to be using to indicate where to go for the Quakes. Our ranged DPS primarily stayed outside of this ring, except for a couple times where we would need to go in for the enfeebling roar. Here's the first Quake. We had a designated person to call out on our mumble where to actually go to. So in this case, towards green, for example. We're using the strategy where you can kind of avoid moving a lot just by slipping through that one little gap between 2 of the fire lines. It's really, really useful. This way we can kind of stack our healing circles. For example, you see there the 2 priest circles as well as the 2 druid circles, which was really useful. Primarily Fimo stays in the middle, so one of our tanks is in the middle of the room, kind of at that point had to actually avoid that whirlwind, but there is some times where we're going to go into the middle of the room, for example, for this enfeebling roar coming up for Fimos, and at that point both bosses kind of get dragged into the middle. Then we have to move out again here in a little bit after the enfeebling roar for a Pulverize. So there's constant movement in this fight. A lot of it is about coordinating your raid, making sure everyone is aware to move in or to move out. That is really imperative to this fight. Making sure that you've got people who can call out what the next abilities are, such as Pulverize, enfeebling roar, interrupting shout, and so on. Really, really helps. You have to have people kind of aware where to go and what to do. Here's another Quake, fortunately right there by green again, so we called it out, go to green, and then we can kind of stack and heal. There's quite a bit of damage going out during the Quake, so there's a passive kind of damage that happens during it. And so even if your raid is able to avoid the fire lines pretty successfully, nobody gets the debuff, you still have to use some raid cooldowns. So for example, we have 2 Holy Priests and 2 Resto Druids, for this fight, so it was really easy to just kind of alternate Divine Hymn and Tranquility for these. I was able to use my Devotion Aura every once in a while when things got a little hairy, and I tried to save personal cooldowns for this part of the fight too, that Quake. Make sure people are using their personal CDs. It really helps out a lot for the healers. The other place where there's a lot of damage that kind of goes out is this enfeebling roar and the Pulverize. Like there's this combo right here. You have to stay kind of like spread out, but not really spread out. Like you still want to stay kind of grouped up. So it's a bit of a challenge. It'll take a few times before your raid really minimizes the damage there. Then it's really just trying to stay here in the sort of center of the room. That way we can move either the right or left for those Quakes. So we tried to have people kind of clump near that green marker whenever we were out on this outer ring for the range. This fight is pretty tough for the melee. They have quite the challenge, I think, moving with the boss and trying to avoid getting the fire burn debuff. It's really useful with the rogues because they can just cloak it off, which happen often for them, but for like any DPS warriors or DPS DKs, it gets a little weird and they have to kind of just practice it. Again, like this fight is mostly about coordination, making sure that people are being aware of what's the next thing that they need to do. At about 2/3 through the fight, there's a point where there's a switch where we moved Fimos outside of the raid, or outside of the center, I should say. And the reason for this is there's a shield charge that Poe will do, and you have to kind of avoid that, and then Fimos right there will enfeebling roar. So it's a lot easier, we found it a lot easier just pull out Fimos, and instead of trying to avoid the charge while being in the center of the room. That was quite a bit of a challenge. At about 10% or so, there is a situation where you'll have both a Quake and a Pulverize go out. So here you'll notice we're kind of still stacked up, but at this point it kind of becomes a every man for himself, because you have to avoid the fire and avoid all of that cave-in damage from the Pulverize. This is a really good time if I really should have probably used Devo Aura here, and I was apparently way too distracted to use it, but it would be a really good time to use some cooldowns, personal cooldowns, or totem if you have the shaman. You know, the heal totem would be really useful there too. Something that can be done without a lot of channeling, for instance. So this fight is mostly about coordination, making sure people are calling out what needs to be going next, moving in and moving out as needed for the different abilities. As long as you've got some good DPS, you know what to do next, your fight is going to go really well and your raid's going to kill this. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this Mythic Twin Ogron heal guide. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and comment below, give me some likes, subscribe to my channel. I got plenty of videos, including a Mythic Kargoth Blade Fist guide. Take care.